Hello and welcome to our Lakeside chat. We are David Wofford and Katie Noonan, co-chairs of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we're so happy that you can join us tonight.
As we begin our program, it is important for us to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that Lake Merritt is part of Ohlone territory. We hear now from Corinna Gould, spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and co-founder of Segura Te Land Trust.
Good afternoon, relatives. My name is Corinna Gould. I am the spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We are here today at what most folks think of as Lake Merritt. We are in the territory of Huichin. Huichin is actually a territory that encompasses 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. And so this is a place that my ancestors have been since the beginning of time. And this was a place of abundance. I'm so happy that people from all walks of life that now come into our territory can enjoy this beautiful place that my ancestors have enjoyed since the beginning of time. My relationship to the land that I have been born to, raising my children and grandchildren here, has been to tell the story, the truth of what happened on this land before other people came here. I'm hoping that as we begin to learn these lessons of fires in California, the pandemic that's happening, that human beings come back to living in reciprocity with the earth.
Thank you. So it is always such a moving experience to hear Corinna's welcome every Lakeside chat as we experience so many changes in our own world, as we celebrate our human festivals in the context of what happened to her people, and the occurrence of genocide, which she lives with, and which is the really the story of the land that we are now on, and we are now conducting and enjoying our lives. It's thank you for the reminder of that and its importance in our world today. For people just joining us, we are starting Lakeside Chats. This is our 65th program. We began in 2020, and we have a wonderful series of programs that you can look through on our playlist. Rotary Nature Center Friends is an independent, all-volunteer nonprofit, and we provide online and in-person programming for all the people of Oakland. We engage the community in real science and stewardship activities, bringing people and nature together in the heart of downtown Oakland to steward the nation's first wildlife refuge. The focus of our activities is very active. We are in the field every week. We share community science. We're building community science at Lake Merritt. We build community and understanding of the natural world we live in by serving intergenerational local community people, and serving and educating everyone about environmental impacts that we have, especially those, how they affect marginalized and low-income parts of our community. We would like to thank at the beginning our many helpers and supporters that help us to provide our programs. We do not charge schools or people who sign up for Lakeside Chats, and that's part of our philosophy, that we want to share this with everybody. And so at this point, I would like to turn off my screen and introduce our speaker. So our speaker tonight is Lisa Owens Viani. Thank you, Lisa, so much for coming and for helping us put this program together. Lisa is a science writer and a wildlife advocate who co-founded and directs Raptors Are The Solution. She co-founded RATS in 2011 with Alan Fish, a raptor biologist, and in 2013, RATS became a project of Earth Island Institute. RATS educates people about ecological role of raptors and the enormous danger to raptors and all wildlife, as well as pets and children, from the use and widespread availability of anticoagulant rat poisons. It seems that we get news relating to this very frequently, and there's a lot of concern about oversight and continuing to make this a priority in our taking care of wildlife. Lisa has provided her full bio, which we will send to everybody participating here. And it is extensive, and I know we're going to hear some great information relating to her history and her efforts that she has had. It's something good to note that she is or has been a wildlife rehabber and has a very strong connection to individual wildlife in need, and how we can think about that and incorporate that thinking in our daily lives. So really thank you, Lisa, for being here tonight and presenting a program to Lakeside Chats. Have I left anything out that you'd like to say as far as introduction?
No, thanks so much, Katie. I have to say that I just have to warn people that you may hear some bird noises in the background. I had to move my birds into my office, so they're supposed to be asleep right now, but you're probably going to hear them chattering because they start talking whenever I start talking. So please bear with me.
That's very cool. And well, and then Lisa, I'm really excited to hear you talk. It's a really timely topic, and we're really excited to hear about it.
So the title of the talk, as Katie has publicized so well, is Raptors and Rodenticides, Rat Poison Kills More Than Rats. However, there's another aspect to the story that I'm going to be focusing on tonight, which is that kind of the story of how we built grassroots action to take action as far as lawsuits and legislation in order to help everything in the food web from raptors to mountain lions. So we started off as a raptor group and quickly realized that raptors weren't the only animals being poisoned by rodenticides. So this is kind of the story of how we built a coalition to make effective change in California. So we've been a project of Earth Island Institute since 2013, and I founded this organization with raptor biologist Alan Fish, who many of you may know. He's the director emeritus of the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory. Our vision is for a healthy, functioning food web in which every organism remains poison-free. Rat poisons undermine a critical piece of this system, the predator-prey relationship. That's a northern harrier there. Hunting. So we employ a multi-pronged strategy: public education and partnerships, building partnerships, legislation, and litigation. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to show some scenes from the graphic novel that we just published last year, which Katie has mentioned in the intro. Raptors have made a comeback, especially in urban areas, as after DDT was banned and the thinning of eggshells stopped, letting raptors reproduce freely. It really affected bald eagles and peregrine falcons in particular. This is a peregrine falcon in the upper left on the campanile at UC Berkeley, and a red-tailed hawk sunning itself on a window ledge in downtown San Francisco. So we have a lot of raptors in urban areas, which is the thing that I'm really excited about. I love raptors everywhere, but I'm really thrilled that they live in our cities now amongst us and we can see them. This is a very red-tailed hawk on a city street in San Francisco with a rat in its talons. And then there have been a lot of celebrity raptors that you may have heard of. Pale male, a red-tailed hawk that nested near Central Park in New York City. Barry was a barred owl who lived in Central Park. Flaco is a Eurasian eagle owl. You may have heard that whole story about how he escaped from the zoo and flew freely in the city for up to a year, pretty much living on urban rats. And then MK was a famous bald eagle in Arlington, Massachusetts. Those are just a few examples. Unfortunately, all of these famous, iconic raptors ended up being impacted by rat poison. This is a red-tailed hawk with a very large rat in its talons at a construction site. Lots of times when the ground is disturbed for construction, rats will come out from underneath the buildings, and then oftentimes birds of prey will be able to capture them. People have a lot of goofy ideas about raptors. They think they're invincible and strong. A lot of silly things that you'll see online. But, and people still actually trap and shoot raptors. They also can get hit by cars or crash into windows, etc. In reality, only 30 to 40% of raptors make it through their first year. So they're very vulnerable. And today they're facing even more threats with all the people that we have on the planet, resulting loss of habitat and extreme weather events caused by climate change. So they're really facing a lot of challenges. That's another image from our book. But there's one threat that I always say we can do something about, which is that of rodenticides, or rat poisons. Like DDT, anticoagulant rat poisons can build up or bioaccumulate in fatty tissues in the bodies of raptors, especially in their livers. So again, we actually started farming in 2011 in response to several Cooper's hawks being poisoned in Berkeley, where I lived at the time. I was watching a nest of Cooper's hawks for the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory as a volunteer. The whole neighborhood was kind of involved watching these raptors grow. This is the family. This is a photo by Tony Brake, the parent feeding the fledglings. And then, unfortunately, one of my neighbors came running over to my house one day. He had found 2 fledglings dead in his little kid's swimming pool. And then another one bled out on the sidewalk. And so what happens sometimes when raptors or any animal is bleeding to death internally, they'll try to go and find a source of water because their blood is being thinned and they're bleeding out. So these 2 fledglings had gone to the pool to try to drink because they were bleeding internally. So I took their bodies to Wild Care, which is the rehab center that I volunteered at for many years. And then they had their bodies tested by UC Davis, which confirmed multiple anticoagulant rat poisons. So this is my favorite, I think, page from the book, just the raptors and the other wildlife looking at the pesticide companies putting out these poison bait boxes, which you probably see everywhere in the landscape. And they're asking, don't they know that we can control rodents without using poison? So we started off, we went door to door, we talked to people, asked them not to use poison, tried to figure out who was using poison. We never did quite figure out who it was, but anyway, we wanted it to stop. So we formed our nonprofit. Oftentimes when raptors are poisoned, they become weak and lethargic and they're grounded. They can't fly. So it's not necessarily that they always are immediately killed by these poisons. It often takes them a while, and that's when people find them and pick them up, and they often end up in rehab. But sometimes dead raptors are found, and then those bodies, whenever we can, we try to send them in for testing by the state, so we have the record of what the cause of death was. This was a fledgling turkey vulture that landed on a patio in El Cerrito. It was very lethargic and ended up passing away the next day. We took him to Wild Care and he tested positive for several anticoagulants. And what was especially sad about this story is that, again, the whole neighborhood was watching this nest of turkey vultures, which is very rare in an urban setting. So we think that the parents had picked up some poison prey and fed that prey, that carrion, the dead animal matter, to this young fledgling who then died. And later the parents disappeared as well. So it was just really quite tragic. This is, sorry for the graphic image, this is often what happens when an animal is poisoned by anticoagulants. They bleed out, the raptors bleed out from their bills and from their nares, from their nose, from their vents. And again, sometimes they just become very sick and lethargic. It's not really a pretty way to go. This was a great horned owl that ended up in a dumpster in San Francisco. The body was retrieved and tested. was a very, very sick owl. It had a lot of problems, but one of the key things from the necropsy report was that it had an extensive hemorrhage in its body cavity, which is a sign of anticoagulant rodenticide poisoning. And then they discovered rodifocum and bromadiolone in its liver. We actually held meetings with pest control operators and tried to talk to them about what they were doing, the impacts they were having on wildlife, and they literally sat at meetings with us and said, well, we love owls, we don't want to hurt owls or birds of prey. And we said, well, they basically said, like, these poisons, we put them out and then they're out of sight, out of mind. And we tried to point out that they're not out of sight, out of mind for predatory animals who prey on the poison rodents. This was a red-tailed hawk in San Francisco at a Safeway store that learned to wait outside a bait box for poisoned rodents to come out of it, and then he would just pick them off. Ultimately, we got that Safeway store to stop using those poisons in their bait boxes, but it just goes to show you that, raptors are very smart, and poison prey are much easier to catch. Sick prey are much easier to catch than healthy prey. So there have been studies showing that raptors are, more likely to be poisoned or affected, obviously, if they catch slow-moving, sickish prey. This was a peregrine falcon that fledged off of the Campanile at UC Berkeley and landed on its first flight on the ground next to a bait box in the city of Berkeley, which is truly awful. Peregrine falcons do eat more. People think they only eat birds and ducks, but they actually will eat rodents if they have the chance. This is the American kestrel. Some of you guys guessed this. It is a very small raptor. We call it a pint-sized predator. It's a beautiful little raptor, and it's seriously in decline. And there are various, hypotheses about why. We think it's because of habitat loss, but also a lot of insecticide and rodenticide poisonings are likely. So it's really tragic that these little guys are being wiped out. Many rodent-eating mammals have been poisoned by anticoagulants. Skunks, which are great rodent predators, in case you didn't know, they're very beneficial animals. Gray foxes have really been impacted. A lot of mountain lions actually have been poisoned. They eat rodents, and this mountain lion, P22, was on the cover of National Geographic. He has a collar, as you can see, and when they captured him to change his collar batteries, they found out that he was covered with an ectoparasite called mange. So there's a link between anticoagulants and immune system impacts, and mange, the skin parasite, is one of the results that can happen from an impaired immune system. So really these things have been found at every level of the ecosystem, from, they've been found in earthworms, insects, songbirds, and even river otters, fish, and water birds. And most of the studies on anticoagulants in fish have actually been done in Europe. They're sort of far ahead of us in that issue, but that's pretty disturbing that they can actually be found in fish. There have been some studies in Washington State by some of the tribes finding anticoagulants in fish. This is a poster that was created for us with help from a scientist for us that shows exactly how these rodent poisons work and how they bioaccumulate in the liver. And this poster is actually in our book. So basically, they interfere with the clotting cycle, and these are some of the results. One thing to note is that there are a lot of sublethal effects, meaning effects on animals that are not necessarily death. The immune system can be compromised. They can lose ability to regulate body temperature. It can affect reproduction. Stress hormones can be increased. They can become more susceptible to infections. And then sometimes body condition is just really poor once they've had this sublethal exposure to anticoagulants. So we started forming a coalition and having meetings and talking about, what to do, what is our strategy. What would Rachel Carson do? She was always our inspiration. And in some ways it is like DDT because it has successfully infiltrated the ecosystem so thoroughly. So we knew we needed to build a bigger coalition. We started reaching out to other groups. We started doing a lot of large-scale public education on BART, in BART stations, at bus shelters, on trains, BART trains, variety of different venues. We did a lot of public events, tabling. This was a BART festival at the Embarcadero. And interestingly, little kids always understand this issue really quickly. This was a bus tale that we did in San Francisco. We tried all kinds of different designs using like the faces of animals that have been poisoned. This was a billboard that we did up in Northern California. The man at the bottom is a really wonderful scientist named Murad Gabriel, who has studied the impacts of anticoagulants on the native Pacific fisher. It was a bus shelter in Sacramento that shows the burrowing owl. Another billboard in Seattle. We did this billboard one winter when all kinds of snowy owls were showing up in Seattle. And then more recently, we focused on agricultural areas, and that is because the legislation that we've been able to pass has had to exempt agriculture. It's a big, huge, giant, awful loophole that we're hoping to someday be able to close. But because agriculture is so powerful in our state, we basically wouldn't have gotten anything passed if we hadn't exempted them. And that photo is by Lee Oryx. Some of you may know him. He's an Oakland wildlife photographer. It's just an amazing photo of a great horned owl with a gopher. So we started having rallies in Sacramento. One of the rallies we had was timed with the annual meeting of the National Pest Control Association. That was we unfurled a giant billboard skin on the state capitol grounds. And then we've tried to keep the issue in the public eye in newspapers, magazines, online, just whenever we can, reaching out to reporters and trying to keep this issue alive. Social media has really been a boon for us. This was a poster that went viral online. For some reason, this poster with the green fluorescent green mouse is our most popular poster, and it just went all over the place online. It's been translated into 16 different languages. And then we've partnered with Eagle Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts as well to build owl boxes that we have given out as awards to community groups that are able, in cities and schools, et cetera, that are able to stop using poison and try to attract owls as a beneficial rodent controller instead. This was a college in the East Bay that was using a lot of rat poison to control ground squirrels. We found out that the actual cause of the problem was that a groundskeeper was feeding the ground squirrels. So we got him to stop doing that, and then they were able to stop using poison, and we put up owl boxes. And then one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning is that we've taken legal action. And so we actually filed a lawsuit in 2018 under the California Environmental Quality Act, basically seeking to have the state reevaluate these poisons. So every year when these companies file for registration with the state is supposed to evaluate them and figure out if they're having any impacts, any untoward impacts, non-planned impacts. They're supposed to do an analysis under CEQA, and basically they weren't doing that. They were just rubber stamping their approval of these poisons. And so we filed a lawsuit asking for reevaluation of anticoagulants under the California Environmental Quality Act. And that was in 2018. The lawsuit was based a lot on the work of Laurel Sirius, who's an incredible young scientist who found this link between anticoagulants and immune system impacts in bobcats. She studied bobcats in the Santa Monica Mountains, where there was a fatal mange outbreak in 2002, and about 90% of the population was lost or tested positive for rodenticide exposure. Many of the bobcats died. So it can have population level impacts. Again, we filed the lawsuit in 2018. the Department of Pesticide Regulation agreed to reevaluate the second generation anticoagulants, which are actually just newer, stronger poisons. The first generation are older poisons. They're just as deadly, but they take longer to kill an animal. And so based on that court victory of the state agreeing to reevaluate the poisons, Assembly Member Richard Bloom from Southern California introduced a bill, AB 1788, in 2019, basically saying we shouldn't be using these while they're still being studied, while these poisons are being studied. And so we were able to get the governor to sign the bill basically on that premise, which he did. So that was the first bill we passed. We went and talked to legislators. We brought them all kinds of studies. We used the California Fish and Wildlife, our own state's data, which is really powerful. We made infographics. We did everything we could think of to try to tackle this problem. And so how do we go from the small grassroots group to getting statewide legislation passed? Again, it was years of attempts at legislation. Our first bill that we got passed was actually prohibiting the use of these products on state wildlife areas and wildlife habitat areas. So it was sort of what we called a baby bill. It was the initial bill we got passed. The very first bill we tried to pass didn't go anywhere because we tried to ban everything in the first pass, and that was not a good strategy. So with the success of the lawsuit, we were able to then get that moratorium and that first bill passed in 2020. And then we continued our court case because we also wanted to see the first generation anticoagulants be reevaluated, in particular difascinone, which is one of the most widely sold, it was the most widely sold and used anticoagulant in California. And we knew it was having a terrible impact on wildlife. So in 2022, the appellate court ruled in our favor, and then we were able to get AB 1322 passed, which put a moratorium on difascinone. And then 2552 was passed in 2024. And that basically put a moratorium on the rest of the first generation anticoagulants. That was Assemblymember Laura Friedman, who's now in Congress. So those are all moratoriums that are tied to the reevaluation process that's still going on right now. And we worked with not only the wonderful attorney Michael Graff, the CEQA lawyer in El Cerrito, but also the Stanford Environmental Law Clinic, where an amazing student named Alana Reynolds, who's kind of pictured in the middle on the bottom there, won this case for us. She was just incredible. This is one of the letters, just shows you all the logos of all the groups. We would send letters to legislators and to Governor Gavin Newsom, asking him to sign our legislation, which he did. So it was quite thrilling. So this just kind of summarizes what these bills do. We now have moratoriums on all of the anticoagulants. It's not a permanent ban, it's not a permanent victory, but it's gone a long way to help wildlife to date. And then another thing we do is try to educate people about other solutions. Instead of using rat poison, what people can do. One of the biggest problems we have is that we humans create a lot of trash. Granted, these photos are a little exaggerated. So we try to, kind of educate people about how these companies come out and they basically get you locked into a cycle where they come and put out poison. They're putting out bait, which actually attracts rodents into an area. And then they say, oh, we've got to come back in 30 days and put out the bait again. And so you're kind of locked into this vicious cycle that never ends. And it's very lucrative for these companies. So the poisons are not a permanent solution. The only permanent solution is really doing exclusion and sanitation. So these are some of the materials we've produced. We have all of these materials on our website, and we also have them available in hard copy that we mail to people upon request and use at events for various different, rat problems. We also have been working with other states that are interested in passing legislation. The most promising one right now is in Massachusetts. That bill is making its way through the legislature. They did something similar to what we did. They had Harvard Law School file a petition with the state to cancel the registration of these anticoagulant poisons. So theirs, if the Massachusetts bill passes, that will be even stronger than the one that California has passed. And you can see these wonderful little kids, these middle school kids who testified at a recent hearing with a copy of our graphic novel that we gave them as a thank you for their testimony. And then just to kind of conclude here, we always like to go back to Rachel Carson, who basically made the point that the public must decide whether it wishes to continue on its present road, and it can do so only when in full possession of the facts. We have the science, we have years worth of data. This issue has been studied for decades. We know what the problem is, and we just need to take action. And one last thing I kind of throw in, because we're talking in urban areas, but it's always good. We have the International Dark Sky Week coming up, and so we try to encourage people to keep skies dark at night for owls and other hunting creatures that are affected by artificial light at night. There's a thank you to all of the photographers and other folks that have helped, and now I can take questions.
Oh, this is wonderful. We have a number of questions in our chat, and so I'm hoping to be able to see them. And let's see. If anyone has a better view and would like to, you can, if you would like to ask Lisa your question directly, you can ask. If when we call on you, we could you could unmute yourself and ask the question. Does Jim or Betsy have a good view of the chat?
Yeah.
Great.
There's a question. There's a question in the chat. Is the poison more potent for the birds when consumed closer to when the rodent died?
Do you mean closer, like geographically or time-wise, or I'm not sure. If you mean geographically, no, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if the rodent, that's one thing that pest control companies like to say, that, well, the rodents don't go very far away to die, but actually they can travel pretty far. So it doesn't matter really where they were poisoned. It's the fact that they're carrying this little toxic time bomb in their bodies. And the poisons, I should have said too, the second generation are so toxic that they call them one feeding kills. So that's a huge toxic load in the body of a rodent, and those work pretty quickly. The other first generation anticoagulants, as I said, take longer to build up in the body. So those can take days for the rodent to die, but the concentration is still really high. So either way, it's not good for an animal like a skunk or a fox or a bird of prey. Do you want me to read the questions, or does someone else want to do that?
If you can see them, Lisa, and you'd like to pick out questions.
Yeah, you can go through them, Lisa.
Okay, let me go up to the top here. Wait, no, yeah, raptor eyesight is amazing. And one of the things that I've learned studying raptors is that they can actually see the trails, the urine trails that rodents leave. So they're able to track rodents that way, which I think is very interesting. I can't tell you if it's, it's definitely better than our eyesight, but I do know that they're able to kind of find rodents in a way that we would never be able to do. Yeah, some people are just making really good points. James Covell, most raptors have much higher visual acuity compared to humans. That's true. And also their hearing is much better. They can hear rodents. They can hear just the rustle of rodents, something that we can't hear. Let's see. Yes, you can use those images. Papers for School with credit to us. Let's see. Well, human populations been screened for rodenticides, and are some populations more vulnerable than others? What I can tell you is that these poisons often affect low-income communities. So oftentimes, you know, sometimes these communities are told this is the only solution to the problem, so you have to use poison. And in fact, that happened in Richmond, California, where one of these poison companies wrote a letter to the mayor saying, if you support this legislation, you're going to cause, huge rodent infestation in your community. And the mayor wrote back and basically said, low income people care just as much about the environment as other people, and we don't want to use poison. We don't want to be poisoning our city. So anyway, but those are the kids that are largely affected. There have been studies done on that. So it's but there has been no like widespread screening of rodenticides actually. Not sure I understand this question. How is the term raptor used in referring to dinosaurs? And why as opposed to how it is used today in reference? I'm not sure I understand that question. Does someone else want to take a stab at that? I don't really know.
Anthony, are you
I'm
asking?
not a dinosaur person, so.
Yeah, well, I've heard that dinosaurs were referred to as raptors, and the term goes back in their description. And so I'm, and then when you talk about birds, some people say they evolved from the Archaeolaps or whatever, the dinosaur.
Yeah,
and
the
so I'm just
Archaeopteryx,
curious as to how the term floated from use in describing dinosaurs and then to birds being referred as well.
I hadn't really heard that about raptors being used to describe dinosaurs, but you're correct that birds did descend from dinosaurs. So obviously there must be a link there. Maybe somebody else on this talk knows more about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Craig.
Oh, hi, Craig.
I'm from Bay Raptor Rescue, and it actually went the other way around.
Did it?
The term raptors was used for birds before a couple of species of dinosaurs were also named raptors, and it comes from the Latin word to grab or to seize.
Okay.
And that's why these birds with talons who seize their prey with them were initially called raptors.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yep.
Craig, you can answer all the rest of the questions. Craig is one of my idols.
It goes both ways, Lisa. What you've done is absolutely amazing.
I guess you guys, I don't know if you all know, but Craig rescues injured raptors. I just worship what he does. He's just an amazing, amazing raptor advocate.
Thank you.
Let's see. Did sheltering at home during COVID and concentration of food sources and habitat in homes lead to an increase in the poisoning problem? No, it didn't. But I think what happened is people were noticing more rodents because rodents were starting to go out when restaurants closed. They were starting to go out and explore, try to find new sources of food. So there's kind of this myth that there were more rodents, but it was really just that they were dispersing more. So that's what we've have learned anyway. The contraceptive approach, I haven't really talked about that very much, but there are several different types of rodent fertility products now. Some are commercially available and some are only being used on a trial basis in specialized cases. There's a pilot project in Berkeley where they're using a product made by a nonprofit called Wisdom Good Works. And that's ongoing. I don't think they have any results that, can be written up, but the products they're not hormones. So they don't bioaccumulate in the food web. They're basically a chemical that it's made from the thunder god vine. And what they do is they affect the fertility, I think, more of the male rat than the female rat. So they knock down the rat population, but they don't actually kill the rats. And the idea is that over time, with continued use, you're going to be able to keep the population down to a lower level. So that is what I know about those. We think that they're pretty safe. Let's see, how do the owl boxes work and how do people encourage raptors? Well, the thing about owl boxes is that, what's happened is we've lost a lot of our big old trees. The raptors have lost cavities that they normally would have nested in. So the owl boxes are meant to substitute for that lost habitat. So you can put up an owl box and you want to face it east or northeast. A lot of times people don't know that. And so the owls, that is the exposure they prefer. And then owls will either find them if they like this situation and where you've got the box and the surrounding habitat, and owls will either move in or not. You can't really force an owl to move into an owl box, but I always tell people try at first to conserve, big old trees, all the trees that we're cutting down because of PG&E. So try first to preserve big old trees, which are also great for, roosting raptors, nesting raptors. And then if you absolutely don't have anything like that, then consider an owl box. So let's see what else. I think I got everything. I don't know that when they gather on a large branch as a group, do the wrapped like wrappers? I am not sure. I guess so.
It's just a joke when
Yeah, I think
during the when you had the quiz, one of the first questions I thought I heard you say, "What is the smallest wrapper in in Oakland?" and it just stuck in my mind, and then I played on words. So
got it.
it's late here where I am, so my brain is starting to fade out.
Yeah, I feel you. Does vector control find correlations between diseases spread by rodents and rodenticide use? Well, interestingly enough, there have been studies done. There was one done by actually a scientist at a zoo in Chicago who found that poison rodents actually carry higher disease loads. So that's another downside of using poison. Rats do carry disease. Most of the time we can treat the diseases now with antibiotics, but yeah, poison rodents are more likely to actually carry some of those things that get transmitted to humans.
Lisa, one thing I was that kind of prompted me ask that question is knowing that rats are such social beings, and also if you empty a habitat, there are going to be more coming in from the outside. We're going to be having more rodents moving in, bringing whatever they're bringing into an area. And if we use a lot of rodenticides, we may actually be bringing more vectors into an area than we're already somewhat in equilibrium with. And I'm just wondering, what is the seriousness and approach? As you mentioned, antibiotics and treatment is possible for some of these diseases. I'm just wondering if people have looked at it at that level, at the actual risk to humans, and stamping out rodents wherever you see them. If there's
Well, I think that, unfortunately, the pesticide industry has kind of really played up that fear. So they've greatly exaggerated, the amount of human, what's the word? Sicknesses that have been caused by rodents. They'd like to claim that we're all going to die of the plague. I mean, there's treatment now for typhus that's, basically antibiotics. So really, like, rat bites are pretty rare, and I think that fear card is something we've just had to battle, with this issue. And really, the only solutions to rodent population. I mean, I've had rodents get in my house, and I've had to hire a company to come and do exclusion. They can get in tiny little, the size of a quarter. They can get in tiny little holes, and basically what has to happen is you set a trap, you catch the rodent, and then you seal up any holes or cracks or any place rodents can get in. So that's really the only permanent solution. Just putting out poison in this, what I called a very lucrative cycle for the industry is not going to solve the problem long term. And then simple things like, taking in bird feeders at night, putting them away, don't leave trash out, don't leave food out for your pets, just really common sense solutions like that.
Ooh, we have an interesting question from Jerry about problems in. Does Mexico have any programs like you've described? They have lots of owls, hawks, etc., and rat poison in many stores. So how is that playing out in Mexico?
I don't know Mexico specifically, but this is a problem worldwide. It's a problem everywhere. And I don't know if you guys have followed news recently, but in Australia, they've lost a lot of native wildlife due to rat poison. So Australia has been particularly hit hard. They have an owl called the powerful owl, this big, beautiful owl that's just being wiped out. And so they have a group, a coalition similar to ours that's trying to change that and trying to get legislation passed. And they recently just passed a law where these anticoagulants can't be sold over the counter, which is a great first step. And that's what some other states in the United States have done as well. So that was done in the United States back in 2014. The US EPA took off second generation anticoagulants out of consumer shelves. And then in 2014, California did that. We were the first to do it. And then in 2015, the EPA did it. So those were not available on consumer shelves since that time. However, they still allowed the industry to use them. So it's really the industry that's the huge problem. And that's still the case, almost everywhere.
There's certainly a social stigma about having rats in your house.
Well, it's not good. You don't want them in your house.
Yeah.
But, to see an occasional rat outside is not really a reason to panic. I mean, if you see a lot, that's not a good sign. But I don't want rats in my house. I mean, there have been people that really didn't like our work because we weren't advocating saving all the rats. And that's just something I don't think is realistic.
We have a hand raised. David, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Here we go. Okay, so I have a question in 3 parts, 2 small parts. And the third is what it is. The first 2 are there numbers for the number of rats in the Bay Area and the number of raptors in the Bay Area? And then the last part of the question is, can you speak about what it's been like for your organization, your nature sort of born and oriented or an organization to become so political to accomplish the feats and the political achievements that you mentioned?
I don't think anyone has a good handle on the number of rats, total number of rats per se. Like, I've never seen any numbers like that. I mean, I think that, there are a lot, especially in urban areas. I mean, we all kind of know that. Like, if you just look at New York City and the rats in the subway, etc. Number of raptors is also a huge question. There's no one that really keeps tabs, and the number would be sort of fluctuating anyway, because we've got raptors moving through an area, raptors living in an area year round. So those numbers are, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you about numbers like that. I mean, Craig, do you have any thoughts on that? I guess local Audubons often do like a Christmas bird count to try to get a handle on numbers of various species, but I think even those numbers are kind of, it's just a snapshot in time. Maybe Craig has a thought on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lisa. I don't have population numbers for raptors. it's a good and interesting question, and
Yeah.
I think there may be a way to put data together from various groups, as you were saying, and try to get like a number of resident raptors and a number of migratory raptors. To some extent, the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory could help with the migratory aspect of it, but sorry, I don't have a number to give you.
Yeah, the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory basically counts the raptors that are migrating through the Golden Gate every year. So they kind of get a handle on, again, a snapshot in time of like how many raptors are coming through. And that would probably be our best, resource for total numbers. But even that's, again, just raptors that are kind of moving through the area. You asked about like political implications of doing this work. I will say that the
Thank you.
pest control industry has fought us really hard on this issue, and they showed up at every hearing that we had in Sacramento and opposed us. We actually filed a lawsuit against one company for false advertising for telling its consumers that its products were safe and sustainable, and we won that lawsuit. So they really don't want to see what California has done take hold in any other state. So they're fighting really hard. And I know at one point on their website, they said one of their goals was to go after citizen activists that were concerned about this issue, which is a little scary, but there's so many people working on this issue now, like throughout the US and the world. Like people are really tired of seeing our birds of prey poisoned and other wildlife. So I think there's just too many of us for them to do much harm.
Lisa, we have a couple questions here that have come up. I don't want to interrupt anybody. Jim Covell has asked about problems specifically with rats chewing on wires in cars and trucks. And is there any special approach to that besides, as a result, people are using rat poison?
Yes. So one thing, we had rats get in under the hood of our car. Like everything I do, I've had personal experience with. And one thing that stopped it was just leaving the hood up at night. And because the rats are going in there for warmth, they're always looking for shelter or food or water. That's one thing to know about rats. They always want water, food, or some kind of shelter. So we left the hood up. Granted, our car was not in a garage, so it was cold outside, and basically they moved back out. There are things you can use, under the hood. Like there are various deterrent sprays that you can spray that are like peppermint based or cayenne pepper based, that deterrents that rats hate. So you can use those things safely, under the hood of your car. But the best solution I found was just leaving the hood up when it was really cold outside. And I don't think they also liked the fact that they were then going to be exposed. So I know it's not a good problem to have.
We have a question from Elise about how you could, if you wanted to have owl boxes, how would you encourage raptors to use them?
Well, like I said, there's no guarantee that they'll move in, but if you put a box up, again, you want to orient it sort of facing east or northeast. That's their preferred exposure. It's always worth a try. I don't know. It kind of depends on like where you're putting it, what the neighboring yards are like. But yeah, it's always worth a try. And you want to make sure to use like the biggest owl box that you can find. We see a lot of owl boxes that are really small and the owls are going to be really crowded in there. So I recommend using the design that the Hungry Owl Project uses, and that's a project of WildCare. I also have their plans. If you're handy and you want to build a box yourself, I can send you those plans if you want to email me at raptorsarethe.solution@gmail.com. For repelling rodents in gardens, spraying concentrated peppermint oil. Yes, peppermint oil is good. And I think that would be also a good strategy for a vehicle as well.
So Zane is trying to think through the population effects of
Yes.
rampant rodenticide use and how that's going to ultimately affect the rat population by overpopulation. Um, Definitely.
Yeah, good point, Zane. I mean, you're exactly right. Like I couldn't have said it better. So you're exactly right with what you said there. And that's exactly kind of why we started this work too. And hence the name Raptors Are The Solution. If we just let them do their job, they can really help. They can't control the whole thing, but they can really help us.
Well, this has
There's actually
been
a great horned owl hooting outside my window right now as we're
wow.
talking.
Listening. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. Are we ready to take a pause for the concluding slides? And then if Lisa had want to take one or two more questions after, would you be able to, Lisa? We're going to have about 5-minute closing slides.
Yes to the question, may I use a couple of your slides for Facebook posts? Yes, please do.
Great.
Can you guys hear the great horn in the background? Maybe not.
I'm not hearing it, but
Okay.
but
It's
that's
just very
cool
timely.
very cool to think. Very
Yeah.
cool to think that that's happening,
Yeah.
and that you're able to hear that. We should, that we could all enjoy that in the urban areas as well. So we're going to share some slides here that we do at the end of our programs. We want to thank all of our helpers and supporters at Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we couldn't bring Lakeside Chats or do our programs without the help of all of these wonderful organizations. We would like to thank the City of Oakland's KTOP TV for rebroadcasting our recorded programs. And they rebroadcast on Sundays from 6 to 7 p.m. And the first 2 Sundays of a month will golden oldies from our growing list of Lakeside Chats that you can also peruse on our playlist. And then the last 2 Sundays will be a rebroadcast of that month's Lakeside Chat. You can search KTOP on the City of Oakland website to locate where you can tune into those shows. If you enjoy Rotary Nature's Friends or Friends Lakeside Chats and what we do in the many activities that we host in the community, please consider making a donation to our organization so that we can continue to provide these for people who may not be able to pay for programs that are sometimes charged by organizations, and to build a community of people in Oakland. We want to thank everybody for coming tonight, especially thank you to Lisa, Raptors Are The Solution, California Naturalist, Urban Estuaries course graduates, New Voices Are Rising externs, and Water Justice Fellows, the Alameda County Clean Water Program, a naturalist, Lake Merritt Boating Center, Adopt a Spot, volunteers, the Lake Merritt Breakfast Club, Oakland Public Works, Measure DD, the Lake Merritt Institute, and all of these wonderful organizations. Coming up on May 6th, we're going to have a special guest speaker, Christina Paul, from Mills College at Northeastern University. This is located in Oakland, and she has been studying the effects of climate change and drought on reservoirs in the Oakland Hills. This is a rare opportunity to talk with and to see the results of the kind of fine-grained research that's going to help us adapt to and respond to climate change. We also want to let everyone know about our plankton monitoring program, which is going on every Thursday We do a plankton tow at 9:30 and viewing from 10 to 11 at the Junior Center for Art and Science. And everyone is welcome to drop in at that time to see the kinds of plankton that are in the lake right now. Many people know that the horrible fish kill of 2022 was caused by a plankton bloom. And it's kind of one of our goals is to involve the community in monitoring the plankton changes that occur regularly throughout the year and seasons at Lake Merritt. On Earth Day, the city of Oakland is celebrating on April 13th. We will be doing a tabling and some activities at the Sailboat House Marsh right off the parking lot at 568 Bellevue Avenue. We'll be removing trash and thus reducing rodent problems, we hope, and also learning about all the other components of the ecosystem that interact at Lake Merritt and should be protected. We're also celebrating a special Earth Day event. We are also celebrating an Earth Day event at Oak Glen Park, up on one of the tributaries of Lake Merritt, the Glen Echo Creek, and we are going to be doing planting of native plants and a whole wonderful program which I'll be sending out in the post chat email. Here's a flyer that goes with that Oak Glen Park activity, Community Climate Action Day, supporting biodiversity through activities removing invasive ivy, a great hangout for rats, and trying to restore diversity by restoring native habitat. Here's our flyer for our Earth Day at the shores of Lake Merritt. We want to let everybody know that we are going to offer the Urban Estuaries and San Francisco Bay and Lake Merritt Naturalist course again in the fall, and you can sign up now and follow through. We are offering scholarships to people. If you ask for one, we will respond. So we encourage people who are interested in learning about Lake Merritt in depth and the ecosystem to check that out. We will be participating in the City Nature Challenge BioBlitz on April 25th. And will be a great opportunity to see how our biodiversity is doing at Lake Merritt. As primary stewards of the Lake Merritt Wildlife Refuge, we regularly host school groups and members of the general population at Lake Merritt for bird watching, nature walks, native plant identification, planting and weeding, and testing the water. We want to give special thanks to all of our volunteers and partners. Special thank you to the Frederick E. Hart Foundation for Education Opportunity, which has made a major contribution to supporting our Lakeside Chats. Thank you to our producer, Rob Lamone, myself, and David Wofford, our co-chairs of Rotary Nature Center Friends. And so with that, we conclude our formal program, and we will open the floor up again for some last questions for Lisa and discussion. Okie doke. So please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question or make a comment. We've had a very great we had a wonderful discussion and very detailed and technical, and we will be sending out a post-chat email to everyone with some of the links that Lisa has shared. I strongly recommend taking a look at the book and all of the concentrated information and details that are available there. It's really awesome. I put the link into the chat earlier, and I'll send it out again in our post-chat email. So are there any final comments or questions or discussions we'd like to have at this point? Well, I'm going to shift to, yes, I'm going to see if I can shift to the view. Wait, I'm going to go to gallery view. So we can see all of us. If you wish, you can show us your tile, your face if you'd like to, and let's all give a round of applause to Lisa for a fabulous presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who came tonight, and hopefully we'll be taking this into our communities. We see a lot of mangy coyotes or skunks, or we see some of these signs that Lisa has told us about that we'll be empowered to take action and protect our wildlife and our communities. So thank you all so much.
Katie, can I ask a question?
Well, of course.
So are there any special iNaturalist or citizen science projects that deal with raptor sighting or certain issues of raptors?
That is a good question, and I would not doubt that if you go to iNaturalist and you search, you might find a project about raptors. Or you can also go to the Explorer area and type in a raptor, or just since there are different taxonomic groups, obviously, that are in the raptors, you might have to do it separately for different groups. There are ongoing community city nature challenge projects that are going right now, and you can sort them by the different taxonomic groups, like owls.
Okay.
I would
Looks like
suggest that.
Zane has a question too.
Oh, yes, Zane.
I would just like to say that I really enjoyed the discussion tonight, and I'm really interested in this topic, and I would like to learn a lot more about it. And I was interested in it way more than I thought I would originally be. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. Actually, a question that occurred to me, and we might ask Lisa, is if a young person is really interested in addressing this problem and going on into higher education, what are some of the fields that they would want to consider as an undergraduate? Probably they're the tools that you need, the chemistry, and also policy and so forth. Maybe we can send something like that out in the post chat, or if you want to comment now, you could.
Yeah, I was going to say, if any of you are interested, really want to get involved in this issue more, email me at raptorsarethe.solution@gmail.com, and I'll try to talk back and forth with you about what you might want to do, how you could get more involved. Because I have a lot of ideas, but it probably just depends a lot on the person too. We worked with Girl Scouts and individuals doing school projects and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Wonderful. So we will be sending out the post chat email, and then everybody who's here tonight will receive an invitation to the next Lakeside chat, which is coming up on, I believe, May 6th, I think. And we have an incredible lineup for the rest of the year, all the way up through December. We have some really exciting speakers and so very excited about having this way to reach out to the community. So thank you all for being here and for your great conversation and topics and things you've shared. So at this point, if there are no other business before us, I would like to say thank you so much, and I will close the meeting. And feel free to email me, ktnoon@aol.com, with any questions or second thoughts that you might have had, questions that you have, and I'll try to respond to them. So, okay, everyone, have a wonderful weekend, and Thanks so much for your participation tonight.